Hi everyone, this is the Nordic Venture Show, your guide to the exciting world of Nordic startups and venture capital. In today's episode, we're exploring a startup called Swarmia.
Ever feel like you're juggling chainsaws sometimes? Trying to nail those business goals while you're keeping your developers happy, productive? It's a real balancing act.
Oh, yeah.
Today's deep dive, all about navigating this crazy world of software development effectiveness.
We're going to figure out if this is all hype or the real deal.
We're taking a close look at Swarmia, right? See if they can actually walk the walk.
You've got a ton of material to uncover here. We're talking Swarmia's website, their blog posts,
Okay.
even a peek at what their customers are saying.
Full-on intel drop.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so before we get lost in the weeds here, what exactly does Swarmia do?
They call themselves an engineering effectiveness platform,
Right.
which is, more than just a fancy title, right? It suggests they're aiming for this big picture view of software development.
Okay.
Not just, zeroing in on these isolated metrics.
Right.
It's about the whole shebang.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but what does that actually look like in practice?
So Swarmia structures its approach around three main pillars: business outcomes, developer productivity, and developer experience.
All right, let's break those down.
All right.
Let's start with business outcomes first.
Sure.
And help me out here, because sometimes it feels like, engineering teams are kind of off in their own coding away
Yeah.
without a clear connection to the bottom line.
Right, and that disconnect is exactly what Swarmia is trying to address.
Okay.
They want to ensure that all that coding wizardry actually translates into tangible business value.
Right.
No more building things in a vacuum.
Which is a relief.
Right.
Because we've all been in those situations where you deliver this technically brilliant piece of code,
Yeah.
but it misses the mark on what the business actually needs.
Right, and that's where data-driven decision-making comes in.
Okay.
One of Swarmia's key features is called investment balance, and it tackles this head-on.
Okay.
Imagine you're feeling that pressure to constantly churn out new features.
Oh, tell me about it.
Shiny, exciting new features. But what about maintaining that existing code base?
Right.
Or tackling that pesky technical debt that's been building up?
Ugh, don't even get me started on technical debt.
Right.
It's like the monster under the bed that everyone knows is there, but nobody wants to deal with.
Exactly, but ignoring it just makes it worse in the long run.
Right.
Swarmia's investment balance feature visualizes how your engineering time is actually being spent across these different categories.
Okay.
New development, improvements, keeping the lights on, all that good stuff.
Right.
It gives you cold, hard data to make strategic decisions about where to focus your efforts.
So instead of just guessing at how much time we're spending fixing bugs,
Yeah.
we can actually see it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It takes the guesswork out of it.
That sounds like a game changer for having more productive conversations
Right.
about resource allocation.
Absolutely.
No more relying on gut feelings or vague estimations.
Exactly. And for those massive projects that span across multiple teams, they offer a feature called initiatives tracking.
Okay.
You know how chaotic it can be trying to wrangle all those moving parts, keep everyone on the same page?
It's like herding cats, honestly.
Oh, tell me about it.
Everyone's working on different timelines with different priorities.
Right.
It can be a nightmare trying to keep track of everything.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But initiatives tracking provides this real-time dashboard where you can monitor progress, identify potential risks, bottlenecks,
Right.
and ensure everyone's working from the same playbook, right?
Okay.
No more siloed teams working in the dark.
Okay. That's huge for collaboration and transparency.
Huge.
But Swarmia doesn't stop at the team level, right?
No, not at all.
They also dive into the nitty-gritty of individual work
Yeah.
with their work log feature, which sounds super intriguing.
This is where it gets really interesting because
Yeah.
Swarmia claims to uncover all that invisible work.
Oh.
That often slips through the cracks with your traditional project management tools.
You mean like all those little tasks and ad hoc requests that eat up a developer's day,
Yes,
but never seem to make it onto like a Jira ticket?
exactly.
Okay.
Those invisible tasks can really add up
Right.
and paint an inaccurate picture of where developers are spending their time.
Yeah.
Swarmia wants to bring those hidden efforts to light,
Okay.
giving you a more complete and accurate understanding of your team's actual workflow.
Which is critical for identifying those hidden bottlenecks.
Yes,
And figuring out how to optimize things.
absolutely.
So no more developers feeling like their efforts are invisible or
Exactly.
undervalued.
Got it.
This is all music to my ears.
Oh, right.
I'm eager to see if they live up to the hype.
It's a lot to take in, right?
It is.
It really seems like Swarmia is trying to paint this complete picture of how engineering teams actually operate.
Yeah.
The big projects, the individual tasks, everything in between. It's not just about presenting the data, though, right?
Yeah.
This is where their focus on that third pillar, that developer experience, really shines through.
Okay.
They've got this feature called Developer Overview,
Okay.
and it's all about understanding individual impact, right?
Yeah.
Without reducing developers to just numbers on a dashboard.
Which is so important because we're talking about human beings here,
Right.
not robots.
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
No one wants to feel like they're being measured and evaluated solely on their output,
Yeah.
especially in a field like this that's as complex and nuanced as software development.
Totally. And that emphasis on the human element ties directly into Swarmia's whole philosophy of continuous improvement.
Okay.
Right. They're not just about identifying problems.
Right.
They're about actually giving teams the tools and insights to solve these problems.
Okay, so how do they approach that?
Okay.
Do they offer like concrete strategies, or is it more about like, here's the data,
Right.
you figure it out?
So it's a bit of both. They offer features like working agreements, which encourage these teams to establish shared expectations and guidelines
Yep.
for how they want to work.
Got it.
It's about building those positive habits and those feedback loops directly into the development process.
I love that because so much of software development really comes down to communication and collaboration.
100%.
And, having those clear working agreements can make such a huge difference in how teams function.
Right. It's all about clarity and transparency.
Yeah.
And this all ties back to that bigger picture of data-driven decision-making.
Right.
Swarmia isn't just about giving you more metrics to track, right?
Right.
It's about helping you use those metrics to make informed decisions, right?
Oh,
About how to improve your processes, your collaboration, and then ultimately your software.
it's like instead of flying blind and hoping for the best,
Yeah.
Swarmia is giving you the instruments and the navigation tools
Yeah.
to chart a clear course and reach your destination
Oh my
more
God.
effectively.
It's like a GPS for your software development.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
You say data-driven decision-making.
Right.
And some people immediately picture, like, those dystopian sci-fi movies where robots are running the show.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Honestly, there are plenty of tools out there that seem way more focused on surveillance than support.
Right.
But that's where Swarmia tries to differentiate themselves.
Okay.
They're very clear about avoiding what they call micromanagement metrics.
Okay, good, because nobody wins in that environment.
Right.
Developers feel stifled and mistrusted.
Right.
And it just creates this toxic pressure cooker environment
Totally.
that ultimately harms productivity.
Absolutely. It's counterproductive.
Right.
Swarmia emphasizes that they're not about tracking your keystrokes
Right.
or shaming developers into working longer hours.
Right.
Their focus is on those system-level improvements,
Okay.
not individual pressure.
So it's less about you developers are not working hard enough.
Yes.
Exactly.
And more about, hey, team, here's an area where we can all improve our processes to make everyone's lives easier.
Exactly.
Right.
100%.
Okay.
And they back up this philosophy with concrete examples in their materials.
Okay.
Like, for instance, they cite research showing that long work hours actually lead to decreased productivity
Of course.
in the long run.
Makes sense.
They're all about promoting sustainable work practices
Yeah.
and recognizing that happy developers are productive developers.
Right. Which makes me think about the security aspect of all of this.
Yeah.
Anytime you're talking about a tool that's collecting data about how developers are working,
Yeah.
there are bound to be concerns about privacy and security.
Oh, for sure. And Swarmia addresses those concerns head on.
Okay.
They are SOC2 Type 2 compliant,
Okay.
which basically means they've met this rigorous set of standards for data security and privacy.
Which, for those who don't speak compliance jargon, is a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
It means they're taking data security seriously.
They've gone through extensive audits to prove it.
Exactly. They're not messing around.
Okay.
And they're very transparent about their data encryption practices and their commitment to protecting user privacy.
Really?
They even have a dedicated security page
Oh, wow.
on their website that outlines all of this in detail.
Well, that's reassuring.
Right.
It sounds like they're trying to be upfront and responsible
Yes.
about addressing those concerns because no amount of cool features or data insights
Right.
is worth compromising user trust and privacy.
100%.
Right.
And that brings us back to that idea of developer experience being paramount.
It's really kind of cool to see a company in this space, like actually talking about sustainable work practices, right? Like they actually acknowledge there's human beings behind the code.
Right. It's a breath of fresh air.
Totally.
It feels like a real shift in mindset, from just squeezing every last drop of productivity out of developers to actually like creating an environment where these people can thrive.
Right. It makes you wonder, if this focus on data-driven decisions, transparency, developer well-being, like if this is the future of software development, then what role will tools like Swarmia play?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, they're certainly like positioning themselves at the forefront of this whole evolution.
For sure. And they're addressing, like a real need because the old ways of doing things, relying on gut feelings, siloed teams, those dreaded micromanagement metrics, like it's just not cutting it anymore.
Right. Especially not with the pace and the complexity of like how we build software these days. Like
Right.
you need data, you need that transparency, and you need to create an environment where your developers feel, valued,
Right.
empowered.
And that's what it comes down to, right? Creating software that people actually want to use.
100%.
And it starts with the work environment, right? Like people got to feel,
Motivated.
motivated and engaged.
Engaged. Yeah.
Because when developers are happy, they're more likely to do their best work, which benefits everybody, right?
Absolutely. That's the dream.
So for our listeners out there who are maybe feeling stuck in, that old way of doing things, feeling that pressure to like just churn out code without much thought for the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What's one key takeaway that they can glean from all of this?
I would say, don't underestimate the power of data, right?
Right. Yeah.
Transparency, both for making better decisions, right? And for creating a more, positive and productive work environment.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
Right.
If something's not working, like whether it's a tool, a process, or even just like the overall culture.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to speak up and advocate for change.
100%.
Because at the end of the day, building great software, it's a team effort.
Right. Yeah.
And it requires that holistic approach, right?
Right.
That takes into account the needs of the business, the developers, and then ultimately the end users. Yeah, you nailed it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Swarmia and, this whole evolving world of software development,
Right.
here's a final thought for you to ponder, right?
Okay.
If data is power,
Okay.
what new possibilities does it unlock when that power is shared transparently and used to empower, not just measure?
Ooh, that's a great one to leave our listeners with some food for thought as we navigate this crazy, ever-changing landscape.
And on that note, we'll sign off. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the future of software development effectiveness.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Nordic Venture Show. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories of innovation from the Nordics.